first of all, I'm so excited you are here. Welcome to our very first CTE webinar of the year. We're still letting people in, so that's a great sign that this is just an awesome opportunity together with everyone. Some of you we've not seen. Grant and I were just saying we've not seen you in 6 months, but yet it's felt like 6 years since the last time some of us were together. And believe it or not, we are still here. We're still doing good work of mentoring teachers in career technical education. And so we have an awesome webinar set up for you guys. It's called Mentor Values. And a lot of these webinars are just really geared towards you guys who are in there, in the trenches, mentoring these career technical education teachers, administrators, and all that. So first, let me introduce myself. So I am Christopher McClung. I am the Southern California Program Coordinator for CTE TEACH. I am also the Special Projects Coordinator for the Colton Riley Jucaipa ROP. And so one of the things I do is I oversee our own mentor program here. And my mentors are actually here in the audience with you guys, and the four of us together, we have a great group of teachers that are brand new to teaching that we're working with, but also love Dr. Pepper. I can't get away from it. Absolutely one of my favorites. And also I love Disney films, especially Star Wars. And as you can see behind me, Star Wars stuff, Marvel stuff. And I am a former video game and animation teacher. So that's kind of the way I unwind is with my own kids. We like to play Nintendo and stuff. And so it's a lot of fun. So Grant, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
That's awesome. And this guy is a pleasure to work with. For anybody who do not know Chris, you've never met him before, it's a pleasure. So my name is Grant Ermis. I am the Northern California coordinator for CTE TEACH, and was involved in CTE insofar as ag education. So that's been my background, and I think I've been involved in CTE in one way or another from high school through junior college and four-year institutions for the last 22 or 23 years. So my teaching career was short, though. That was 10 years of it. But yeah, so it's good to be here. A lot of energy. I love Cheese Whiz and crackers. Don't feel the need to send it to me, though, because we're getting into the fall and Thanksgiving. I don't really need to add more pounds on than that are necessary, right? So it's good to be with you all today.
Yeah, that's right. Very cool. I forgot that Thanksgiving is coming. That's right. Just keep adding those COVID plus.
Well, and that Halloween candy too. Chris, you've got kids still.
Okay, so yeah, my kids don't know how much candy I eat when they're in bed. It's disgraceful. They wake up and like, Dad, where's all the chocolate? All we're left is with Jolly Ranchers. So yeah. All right, so moving on. So here's some of our webinar norms. We just kind of keep us in line. So we ask that you would just mute your microphones if you're not speaking. That way we don't accidentally hear any children barking or dogs crying in the background. And then also we will use this to take attendance. So part of your things as mentors is we want you to attend at least 5 of the webinars we are offering this year. We're offering more than that, but we want you to attend at least 5 of them. So if you could do us a favor, make sure your name is on your Zoom account. That way, when we go through and we say, okay, yeah, this person was there, this person was there. And then lastly, we encourage you, please have fun in the chat room. We will ask you to unmute and talk to us, and we'll do some collaboration here. But if you guys hear anything, or if you have any resources you want to share, we highly encourage you, please use that chat room to talk to each other. And that's it. So moving on. So here's our agenda. We're going to do a quick icebreaker called the global pin drop. I'll show you what that is in a minute here. Then we're going to have time for you guys to just kind of chat with one another. And then we're going to get into the meat of what are your values as a mentor, and just how building that foundation, how is it going to be important as you move forward in this year. And then lastly, we'll give you some information about the program and answer any questions that you might have. So guys, cool. Give me a thumbs up if you're good. All right, very cool. So let's play this thing we call global pin drop. I'm going to put this link in the chat room in a minute here. And so what you're going to do is you're going to click on this link that I'm putting in the chat. And all I want you to do is just put a pin on where you were born. So give you an example. I'm going to click on add here. I'm going to type in Azusa, California, which is where I was born. And I'm going to click on, and I could put something here like Chris M was born here, and then click publish. And as you can see, it dropped a pin right there. And we start having all of these pop up. And this is just a cool exercise that for people to see just where you were born. Just kind of gives a background. So we have one here in Washington, D.C., whole bunch popping up here in California. And what's really interesting to me is sometimes I zoom out on this, and then you'll see people who are actually born in this part of the world as well. We actually have somebody in our office here around the corner who was born in Uganda. So
that's awesome.
Hey, Chris, how do I pin it?
So you're going to click on the plus sign here in the top right corner. You'll search for the place, and then so let's say I'll just do this one. I was obviously not born there, but then you would just click on publish, and then that will put that pin when you're there. And you can change the color as well. You can do white and green and orange and all sorts of stuff.
And add a picture.
You can add a picture. If you want to put a picture of your face, you could do that.
I may or may not know that by experience.
Oh, look at this. Ashley in Santa Cruz. Ashley, you've traveled far down south. Yeah, Katie. Yeah. Katie, you make me jealous. My goal is to be close to the beach someday.
No, you're still relatively close.
Yeah. All right, Washington. Rockford.
Ooh. Iowa, Nebraska.
Oh, there we go. Look at this. This is cool.
Yes.
Austria. I know who that was, Mr. Barta. Italy. Awesome. Scott was born here. Iran. And look at this. Taiwan. Very cool. So this is an awesome activity you can do with your share it with your teachers. As you know, if you have Padlet,
yes. Okay, thanks.
If you have Padlet, you can certainly do like where they post on the wall and whatnot. But this is another thing that Padlet offers that you can post as well. You can ask students to do things, not only where they were born, but places they may want to visit, where they plan to work, all sorts of stuff that you can do with just having a blank map in front of you. And you can even change the style of maps that are available as well.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Like I said, it's really neat to see, you know, where we've all come from. And yet here we all are in the great state of California.
That's awesome.
Very, very cool. All right. So Grant, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. So in the beginning of today, we just want everybody to have the opportunity to connect. That's one of the big things for these mentor webinars is for you all to get some FaceTime with one another. We've got 35, 36 individuals who are coming into the room. So a good crew. And in a moment, we're going to open up the breakout rooms, and you all are going to have an opportunity to do a real quick introduction of yourself and list some challenges and successes that you've experienced so far this year. Quick introduction, share some challenges and successes. At the end of 8 minutes, you all are going to come back to the main room, and we're going to have a little bit of a conversation. Okay? So in a moment, I'm going to hit open the breakout rooms. You're going to see that pop in on your screen. Just click OK to accept. And if you lose that, you can navigate to the bottom of your Zoom window and you'll see the breakout rooms tab. But 8 minutes starting now. Well, thank you. Yeah. Well, welcome back from your little bit of heaven in FaceTime together for about 8 minutes, just discussing challenges and successes. There's some amazing things going on, and there's some really challenging things going on. I stepped into one of the rooms just to see what's happening. And so Chris and I are curious about some of those highlights, if you will. They came out. Some of the challenges we could probably figure out across the state. We're going to start there because we want to end on some of the successes. So what I'm going to ask you to do is in the chat, don't send it, but in a message to just me, type in one of the highlights, if you will, of the challenges discussed in your room. It could have been your own, but what was one of the biggest challenges or the themes on challenges that seemed to be present? Now, once you have that typed in, remember it's to a private message just to me. We're not going to air all of our dirty laundry in front of the whole community because we want to focus more on the successes. But out of curiosity, go ahead and click send right now to me on those challenges that you remember. Ding, ding, ding. What do you think the winner is? You can mouth it. Subs, right? And that whole teacher shortage issue. So there's challenges. It's easy to focus on, especially if we're administrators, right? Because those are the things that we're tasked with. We've got to fix these things. And then on the flip side, we've got the successes. Sometimes they don't always outshine the challenges, but we want to make sure those outshine everything right now. So in a message to everybody, we want to see what your main success is. If you took a highlight away from the FaceTime session you were in, or if you have a particular success that you want to share yourself, as you type them into a message to the entire audience, you can click send and we'll read through those together as they start scrolling down in what's commonly known as a waterfall. So go ahead and type in one of those successes into the chat. Send it to everybody.
Yay.
It's so cool when those students come back. I still call them my kids, but teachers excited. Yeah. You know what's really interesting, and it's just kind of summing up a couple of things that I've seen. I've talked with a couple of mentors in our ag teacher induction program, and our veteran mentors are constantly shaping perspective from the fact that, hey, we lost this and now it's back. Let's do anything we can to hold on to it. I don't know if y'all are seeing that across the board, but that just seems to be a prevalent theme from the mentors specifically, right? They're holding on to that perspective. It's like the Kansas drought in the 30s, you know, 40s. They lived it. Just reading through some of these. That's awesome. Ooh, block scheduling. Can be good in a CTE environment sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah, hold on to that connection. That's cool. Thanks, Katie. So a lot of good things that are coming about. Please keep those in mind as we go through things today. If you remember back to your orientation, if you've been involved in CTE Teach in the past, remember those 4 cornerstones of this program. That's increasing teacher retention, increasing professional development, teacher effectiveness, and all of that impacts how successful our students are in general. So whatever you're doing, if you can focus on those successes and keep bringing them into whatever mentoring structure you have in your LEA, then you're going to be going, blockbuster for the rest of this year. So thank you for engaging there. Let's keep those things in mind as we move into talking about values with Chris.
Awesome. So what I'm going to ask you guys to do is, first of all, if you could grab something to jot some ideas down, whether that be a piece of paper and a pen, type it out on your phone, or just having a Word doc open next to you. I'm going to ask you to kind of we're going to do some reflecting and kind of talking about values and whatnot. And these are things that I feel like we've heard these a lot. We've heard about values in our mission statements and values in our vision statements. And, we create posters that we put in our CTE classrooms. But this is really narrowing down to who you are as a leader, because every person in this room right now is a leader at some capacity in your district. And so this is really defining who you are as a leader and what do you value as a person and then as an educator. So we're going to start by doing a little bit of brainstorming here. So these are some value blocks, we'll just say. And so as you can see, this is a particular person that I'm thinking of, and they have these particular values in who they are. They care about feelings is important to them. Positivity is important to them. Having equality for people is important. Being caring, hardworking. Children is hugely important to them. Being somebody with integrity. And above all, and this is the real indicator, they consider all of the neighbors that they have to be their friends. So if you could either just somebody unmute and tell me who they think this is, or type it in chat. If you were to kind of throw these words up, which is what we did, who does this remind you of? Try to think. Who does this remind you of? Anybody else? Everybody's shaking your head. How many of you agree with Mr. Roper? Oh, there we go. I agree. And if you
Does
know
Mr. Roper know you personally?
No. But that's a good one. Yes, this would be one of my heroes, Mr. Fred Rogers. And if you don't believe me, I have this book in my mentor chair, so my teachers can come by and glance through it. It talks all about the show, has a foreword by Tom Hanks. I got the Funko Pop up there behind me, and I even have a red cardigan that I occasionally put on because, again, I think he's an awesome educator. He was the first distance learning teacher, right? And he did a phenomenal job. So when we think of all of these values, we think of obviously Mr. Rogers, because this is who he is. And so what we really want to narrow down is now who you are as a teacher, who you are as an educator. And so this is where the work comes in. I'm going to have each of you, and I'm going to put this into chat. I'm going to give you a list of character traits, a list of values. And what I'm going to ask you to do is for about 3 minutes, and go ahead and click on that in the chat, is you're going to go through this list and determine what values are important to you. So again, you can write this down on a piece of paper, you can type it out on your phone, but just kind of go through this list, and it's a hefty list of about 500 words that have some sort of values in there. And it could be being capable, being clean. I'm kind of in the C section. Being fearless in what you do. So go through and try to pinpoint some words that really you think attribute to who you are as a person, who you are as an educator. And I'm going to go ahead and start the timer here. And I'll give you guys about 3 minutes to just kind of reflect on that. And so let me play. Let's see. So, all right. Well, time is up. So again, so kind of keep those handy there. So now these are, again, some of the attributes of who you really feel strongly makes you who you are, and kind of enjoying our dancing ducks here. But now I want to share with you a video. Some of you may have seen this before, one of my favorite videos, and kind of hang on to those values, and we're going to come back to them. But in the meantime, I want to share this video with you guys. So let me, and I feel like I say this every webinar, I think we all need to add professional DJ to our resumes after doing all this Zoom stuff. So give me a sec here. All right, so let me go and get that started. So go ahead and watch this, about 3 minutes. Great video.
I have a lot of memories from when I was a child. One that's always stuck out to me, though, was when I was about 10 years old, and I was in school, and I struggled. And I didn't struggle with English, math, or science. I struggled holding still. And I would try to listen and focus and process ideas, but I couldn't help myself. And to be honest, I would sit there and then I would just start tapping. And the students in the class would look at me and they'd say, "Hey, stop tapping." A lot of the time, I didn't even realize I was doing it. And then eventually even the teachers got after me and they would yell at me and they'd say, "Clint, you have to stop tapping." It got so bad that I got sent to the principal's office for tapping. And he said to me, "Okay, maybe when you go back to class, just try sitting on your hands. And so I did. I went back to class, and when I felt myself starting to tap, I did this. I sat on my hands. And that worked for about 5 seconds. One time I was tapping in class, and my teacher, Mr. Jensen, he looked at me and he yelled. And he said, "Clint, stay after class." And I thought to myself, this is it. I am done. Now, I've always been the type of person that believes that a single moment in time can change a person's life. And this was one of those moments for me. And I will never forget it. And so I was sitting there with Mr. Jensen and an empty classroom. And he walked past me and he sat next to his desk and he said, "Clint, come here. I want to talk to you." And as he looked me right in the eye, he said, "Now, I need you to know something. You're not in trouble. But I do have just one question that I have to ask you." And he asked, he said, "Have you ever thought about playing the drums?" And in that moment, Mr. Jensen, he leaned back and he opened the top drawer of his desk. And he reached in and he pulled out my very first pair of drumsticks. And he held them in his hands and he looked at me and he said, "Hey, Clint, you're not a problem. I think you're a drummer." And from that moment on, I've never put those sticks down. I've toured, recorded, and played drums all over the world. My whole college education was paid for with drumsticks in my hand. Just because of a single moment in time when somebody believed in me and he saw something in me that I didn't even see within myself. And from that moment, I learned that there's a difference between being the best in the world and being the best for the world.
Chris, I think your mic's on mute.
Dang those, Mark. You get to be the first person to say, "Hey, Chris, you're on mute." So I gave the meaning of life just now, and I'm so sorry you guys missed it. But basically, I was just saying, I really love that quote that says, "I had learned there's a difference between being the best in the world and being the best for the world." And as you are an educator, determining what your values are, think about how you are being the best for the world. And so if any of you could go ahead and unmute the way I just did, and tell me, like, what values do you think Mr. Jensen had as an educator, and how did he demonstrate this in his relationship with his student Clint? And feel free, you can put in chat or you can just unmute. What values do you think Mr. Jensen had as a teacher? Being accepting, that's a great one. Yeah, for sure. Any others? Yeah. Being inspiring, having empathy, helping channel energy, great ones.
Intuitive.
Recognizing different talents as well. I love that. Being open-minded. And I have to question, like, what was Mr. Jensen doing to even have a pair of drumsticks sitting in his drawer? Because it makes me wonder, okay, is Mr. Jensen a drummer and he recognized that in somebody else? Was there another kid who had drumsticks and he took them away and gave them to Clint? Or did he recognize that in Clint and said, "You know what? I'm going to go buy this kid a pair of drumsticks and then give it to him and see what happens." So really you start to think about, like, what happened to get to that point of changing Clint's life. And I love that you guys put in here, he was empowering, he was open-minded. As Patrick put, he had wisdom, he saw it before, and he was being empathetic and tolerant. So yeah, he definitely saw the potential in him. And I think many of us as teachers, we totally can see potential in our students, and we recognize these things in them. And that's where we start putting together, grabbing drumsticks and everything else for them. So now what I want you to do, now this is going to be the difficult part. So you have your list of things that you wrote down that are important to you. Now, this is the hard part. I want you to choose 3 and determine what are the ethics, attitudes, and characteristics that mean the most to you of those 3. So you don't have to write all that out, but just really think about, like, why am I picking these 3 things? Whether it be open-mindedness, having integrity, having empathy, and then begin to ask yourself, like, why are these important to you? Why is integrity more important to you than empathy, or vice versa? And then how would you define these in your mentoring and what you do? I think time. I have a fantastic mentor. Those of you who know, her name is Elena Hernandez. We meet regularly, and I have seen her over and over and over again set aside time for people. Whether that be, she's never said no to a conversation. Somebody says, "Hey, can I talk with you?" She's always said yes, and she makes time for people is a huge value for her. So maybe it's more so the word would be available, being available for people. And this takes time. I know we're probably even doing this a little bit quicker than really you could give it the time to, but definitely this is something to think about. So you got your 3. Okay, so no need to rush. Please feel free to keep thinking, but those of you who are finished, we are now going to do a Menti. And so let me go ahead and get this started. And I'm going to go to put this in chat. If you go to menti.com, and I'm putting in chat for you. Yep. And click on that link. You're going to type in the word, or type in the code 2337-3659. And what we want you to do is just type in, what are your 3 core values? Now, this is anonymous. We won't be able to see everybody's names, but what we'll start to see here is you guys start putting in what your 3 were. We'll start to see a word cloud form here. We can kind of get a snapshot of what things are valuable to people in our room. There we go. So optimism, having playfulness, positivity. Look at that. And the bigger words, if the words are bigger, that means multiple people have put them in. So as we can see, empathy is definitely a larger characteristic that a lot of us seem to share. I definitely agree with that, especially with everything we've learned about teaching and how we've had to really think about how we teach these last several months. Creativity is another huge one. That's one of my personal favorites. I love just really thinking about new ways that we can do things. Having compassion for our students, absolutely, as well. And as we saw in the Mr. Jensen video, having compassion was definitely valuable to him. Being approachable, for sure. I even want to be an approachable dad. I don't know if you've ever had that thought, to where like, gosh, I hope my kids at home feel like, I'm at least approachable to them when they're dealing with stuff, or if they ask for the keys to the car, which I have not experienced that just yet. So, yeah. Grant, anything you want to add?
Often I like to look at the ones on the flanks of the word clouds, because those are the ones that maybe they're not repeated and not necessarily in the majority, but they're ones to just spark some thought in how we're considering everything in the center or the larger items, right? So how a value of being purposeful can help empowering a sense of humor. How can that help and aid?
Yeah, I love that.
Your core values.
Mm-hmm.
Patience. Patience is a virtue that differs between the grades, right? An elementary teacher's level of patience is quite different than that of somebody in high school.
Yeah.
Makes a difference on how you express compassion and empathy, right? And Mr. Jensen, you think about that. It's a level of patience.
Yeah, so I love this, and again, just kind of seeing those bigger words means a lot of us have those in common. And you can definitely see some common threads in here as far as being compassionate, being creative, being positive is definitely something we all want to be as educators. And I would be curious to see, and somebody mentioned this in chat earlier, like that they do something similar to this with their students. I would be curious to see, what would your students put here? What is important to them? What do they feel is important when they're in school? Even your teachers, how are your teachers feeling right now? Would your teachers be putting integrity? Would your teachers be putting compassion, or are they putting words more of just like survival, lunch, those kinds of things? Support would probably be a big one that your teachers would put down there. They just want to feel supported in what they're doing. So this would be a great activity to do with them as well. So very cool. Love that. And we'll keep this. You guys will be able to access this and be able to see it as well. So again, it's just, if you go to Menti, you can create a word cloud Menti, and it works really well. So let me turn it over to you, Grant.
All right. So now we want to chat about those just a little bit and consider the 3 that you chose that you put in that Mentimeter. Determine ethics, attitudes, and characteristics that mean the most to you around those core values. And then try and have a conversation around why are these 3 values important to you? How did you arrive at those? Were there experiences in your lives that led you to that, and what's your definition of each, and how they'll be illustrated in your mentoring, and how that translates into what you do as a CTE Teach mentor. So we're going to open up those breakout rooms again. This time you're going to get 10 minutes, and we're going to drop the numbers down a little bit so you can have a little richer conversation. There's going to be between 3 and 4 people actually in the room with you. And again, randomly assigned, feel free to introduce yourself, where you're from, and then have the conversation about what those values, ethics, attitudes, characteristics, and why those are important to you. Can I clarify what we're going to do over the course of the next 10 minutes? All right. So I'm going to open the rooms now. Enjoy. So I heard some pretty cool conversations in the rooms that I stepped into, just to get an idea for what y'all are talking about. But highlights. We kind of know what the 3 main values were based off of that Menti, but why were those things valuable? I guess that's one of the big things to popcorn out. So if you'd be so bold as to unmute yourself and share with the rest of the crew, what was your why, or what was somebody else's why in your room?
I can share.
So go ahead, Grace.
In my group, we had said pretty much what we saw in that word cloud. But what I wanted to say is the reason for, all 3 of us had our own stories. And the bottom line is what you guys had just shown us, that it's us wanting to be the best for the world. And that's it. And I mean, that's a lot, but that's what it comes down to, is that we're trying to be our best to make a difference for this world.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
And to help our students become the best for the world also.
Mm-hmm.
We were in the same group.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's interesting you mentioned that. We had a mantra when I was teaching in ag education. Our goal was not to produce farmers, right? That just kind of naive. So in ag education, a lot of the times our goal was to help create informed consumers, right? Because everybody's going to fill those shoes. So how you build them into be the best for the world is important.
Yeah.
What else stands out?
Our group just pretty much, reflected on that Menti, the word salad thing. What do you call that thing?
Word cloud.
Yeah, the word cloud. That all of those things taken into account in each of them on any particular day might be more important than the other. But just had a good rounded conversation. It was fine.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's hard to come up with 3 words that define everything that you do, right? We did this exercise in my teacher prep program, and it was the thing that drove everything that I did for the 10 years that I taught, and even still to this day, with some of our designated subjects candidates, I still share what my 3 words are. And I don't know that they're necessarily shared now because the context has changed. I might want to revisit that, but 3 words. It's kind of cool. to think about what really drives you and your bias to some fashion, right? What matters most to you, and how do you inject that into your content, your classrooms, and your mentoring, really. So I guess the last thought that I have on that is, in induction, we use something called Mentoring Matters, and we look at the 4 different stances of mentoring, from calibrating, coaching, and the like, and how you move through those, just depending on how many resources you're giving as a mentor versus how many the candidate are giving into the relationship. And that changes over time, right? So maybe you've got more of a focus on one of your words this week, and it'll change a little bit next week. So consider that as you start to whittle down how your values are leveraged in your mentoring, and even in your teaching if you're still in the classroom, or in your managing if you're an administrator at this point in time.
For sure.
So
kind of the goal in this is the first webinar of us going into this new year of CTE Teach and mentoring and teacher coaching. And this was really to lay a foundation of who you are as a leader, who you are as a mentor. And so, as Grant said, just really think about how these 3 things are going to dictate your leadership, dictate your mentoring. And then as he said, these are things that are important to you. I know for me, one of them is integrity is highly important to me, making sure that I'm doing the right thing, even when nobody's looking. And so that could come down to fiscal stuff. That could come down to even my time, just making sure that I do the right thing, even when I'm not being watched by others, especially my wife. So all that stuff. So with that being said, we're going to do one final thing, and that is the last link of the webinar. Is I'm going to have you guys just put your 3 into a statement on this Padlet, and I went ahead and started with mine, as I just shared. It takes a minute to load here. Come on, internet. There we go. So, as I said, integrity is definitely one of mine. And so I will demonstrate the characteristics of integrity, empathy, and innovation in my mentoring this year. And I put a Superman there, especially Christopher Reeve's Superman, because Superman's just a character who kind of exudes those things, and having integrity, having empathy, and all that stuff. So I encourage you to go ahead and add yours. Like, what are your 3, and how will you model that in your mentoring and in your leading? And how will the teachers, if the teachers were to put the words up of you, what would those 3 words be? So to describe who you are as a mentor and as a leader.
Ooh, that'd be the next level in your LEA groups. You just take it back to your corner and have somebody evaluate you along those core values and see what they think you stand for.
That's where the innovation comes in. Is that would be cool, is you throw a bunch of words up on the wall and you tell the teachers, okay, now grab the 3 that you would say describe me. And they really see what they think about you.
That's heavy.
Yeah.
We just outlined the facilitation guide for our next in-person session. No?
There we go. There we go. So, and then if you're not sure how you can post, I see they're all loading up here. If you click on the plus sign at the bottom, you can type your name if you want to. If you want to leave it anonymous, that's fine. But then you would be able to, in here, write what your statement may be. If you want to add a picture, you can do that by clicking on this image search icon. You'll be able to pull pictures and all sorts of stuff. So, caring, integrity, and dedication in my mentoring. Love that. There we go. Now they're all starting to come in. We'll demonstrate the characteristics of commitment, connection, and compassion in my mentoring this year. Very cool. Creativity, patience, and integrity. Awesome. I will work to empower CTE teachers and support staff while being empathetic to teacher needs and ethical in my decision making. That's very cool. My core values for mentoring are empathy, creativity, and flexibility. Love the picture there. Very awesome. Model persistence. That's a good one. Yeah. Now they're all popping in. They're all starting to move around on me. Being collaborative and flexible and creative. Love that. Love that. Love your gift with the mind there. And Wonder Woman. Very cool. Appreciate the big and small acts from teachers and staff. Empower them to have compassion and have compassion. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, my plan, and Grant, you're going to remind me of this, is to save this. And so when we come back together in May, pull this back up and then have you guys really think about those 3 things and how did you do on them this year? How did you do with your 3 traits?
Love it.
Trustworthy, respectful, and compassionate. Yep. Love that. Cool, GIF. You got this. Very cool. All right. So Grant, let me turn it back over to you. Go to the next slide here.
Now we're in that space that I was about 10 minutes ago. In terms of resources, we've compiled a few things. So as I look down the rest of the books and the video podcasts, it's a good set of information to consider. Dare to Lead is one that's been out there for a while, Swimming in the Deep End. Some of these I'm less familiar with. Chris is good with. I'll tell you one that I'm really familiar with, though, and I alluded to it a little earlier. That's the Start With Why by Simon Sinek. If you ever grabbed his books, they're a pretty good summary of a lot of the media that he's got out there in the world, and how you get people to follow you and you can influence people as well. And then the videos and podcasts you see on the right-hand side, how to find your core values on down through coaching for leaders. Everything relates to values in some fashion. So if you're looking for some resources to work with your mentees, maybe you want to put together a similar value style workshop for them, just to bring them back to their core and help remind them why they're doing what they're doing. A lot of those digital resources are great if they don't have time for the books, but also another great space as well. Anything else to add on to those, Chris?
No, that was it. So all of the ones that are in brown, they are links that you can click on. And so what we're going to do is when we're done today, we will be emailing out this slide presentation. So you guys will have access to all the links and everything there. So we'll just go ahead and kind of move into some of our wrap up with some of the CTE Teach stuff. And then our monthly webinar will be done. So Grant, go ahead.
Yeah. So the technical side of things, to know as a mentor, since that's a majority of the audience here, but also will cater to some of the administrators we have in the audience, are that quarter reporting dates. We're starting technically with Q2. So keep that in mind as you start rolling, which started October 1st. And so your administrators are going to be receiving links to Google folders where they'll also have a link to the activity logs for this year. So make sure mentors reach out to them to get a copy of those. And otherwise, if you were, hashing out hours on a piece of paper or something in the meantime, that's perfectly okay. You can transfer those pretty easy. But anything that's going to be reported for Q2 should be due to us by January 15th. So keep that date in mind. You'll see that second there. But otherwise, things included in quarter reporting will be the trainings that you'll structure for your mentees. And we'll have surveys that are going to go out to both you and your mentees as we get a little further into the quarter. So just stay tuned. Those things will come up. And it's really a way for us as a team to capture an understanding of what's happening with you all and what's going on with the folks that you're serving on the ground. So that's the survey to keep in mind. Not looking for a 100% response rate, but still helps us paint a picture of what's happening in your LEA. Observations and any reflection, that should be a facet of your mentoring, in that you push into the candidates' classrooms or the mentees' classrooms. They may even come observe you teaching in some instances, but being able to have that real time observation of what's happening in the classroom is going to be big. And then I'm going to flip down to the bottom in the virtual visits. Those should be done by November 15th. So mentors and administrators should schedule time with either Chris or myself to do a quick onboarding. That's where we'll be able to answer individual questions after you've had the opportunity to review the orientation video that was sent out. And just as a quick note on what things are sent and how they're communicated, normally they're going to come from Chris or I to the administrators, not directly to mentors, because we want to make sure that the administrators are that funnel between us and the LEA to gather information. So feel free to reach out to an administrator to forward that information on to you. And the links that you'll see there, Chris and I both use Calendly. If you're an administrator and you don't have that available to you yet, it's like having a secondary assistant for scheduling specifically. So feel free to click on one of those links and you can set up an orientation meeting with either one of us. I know my link specifically has other meeting options in there as well if you want to meet with me separately about something else. But that's the quick and dirty. And just remember that January 15th date. Got to have those activity logs in by then, because that's what we're going to base invoicing and ultimate pay off of. So if anything is delayed there, then everything down the chain gets delayed. So if you need some clarity, it would be best to have it prior to the whole Christmas break time period.
All right. And then, so our webinars, we try to come up with a cool acronym. We came up with 3T3, which means we're planning to do a webinar every third Tuesday at 3:30. I would love for it to be just every third Tuesday at 3, but then I found out a lot of our schools are not getting out until 3:15 now. So just remember that 3T3, which means we're going to do a webinar every third Tuesday at 3:30. So these are what we have planned so far. Next month, when we meet together again, our friends at Orange Unified School District are going to share with us their induction program, how they onboard their brand new teachers, what their process is, and all the resources they have for bringing in brand new teachers and connecting them to pathways and all that stuff. Then we'll get into engaging students and special populations, coaching for equity. March, we're still figuring out what that topic will be. And I will say, if any of you want to present, please contact us, and we are more than willing to have you share this space and kind of share with everybody else what you have doing. And then we'll get into more tech tools, and then you've got goals, and we'll find out more about that. So that's kind of the list of the webinars we have for this year. Again, you need to attend 5 of those. So just kind of mark down which one. This one counts today, so you need to do 4 more. And then you kind of get to pick and choose which ones you want to do. So after that, so all that being said, we do here are our resources. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram now at CTE TEACH CA. We kind of put all those together, and then we're on YouTube and SoundCloud and Spotify and Apple Music and all that stuff at CTE TEACH. And again, if you wanted to be on one of our monthly podcasts where Grant and I interview teachers and people in the industry, if you have want any desire to do that, feel free to contact us. You can fill that out or just shoot us an email. So that's it. So your exit ticket is if you could fill out this survey for us, just kind of let us know how this webinar went for you. And then lastly, we would ask you to type into chat something that you learned that you will take with you as you go and mentor. So any questions for Grant or I? No. Okay. So all that being said, so I just put the survey in the chat room. If you could, again, takes about 2 minutes. Just fill that out. Let us know how this webinar went for you. Other than that, we are here to hang out for a couple minutes. If you want to just say hi and then you've completed our first webinar, and we will see you next month.